Chapter 42. Raising Boys in Rising Heat, Mid-1930s. Dadgum, Kaska expression for annoyance or disgust. The dadgum mule refused to move. Riley Harness was a young Christian, and his wife, Melinda, was not. His soul hungered for spiritual food from the spiritual drought he must have felt. Church services were sporadic on Bear Creek, and his main source of fellowship was with a few individuals in the community. He heard of services being held upon the mountain to the west of his place, and decided to take his oldest son Earl with him. They headed out on a mule and climbed the mountain in the late evening to the area today, near Lick Fork Road and Browntown Road. As they were up on the mountain within earshot of their destination, Riley paused to listen to the faint sounds of singing in the distance. He decided that they had gotten started too late and that the singing he could hear was the conclusion of the evening meeting. Riley said that they would not go any farther, and then he got down off the mule and told his Earl to wait there as he walked a short distance into the woods. Earl assumed that his daddy was taking care of some personal business when he heard Riley praying aloud in the quiet darkness. Later, Riley rejoined his son, and they rode back down the mountain to their home on the creek. Earl would never forget the experience nor the impression it made on him that evening. What would seem to have been a wasted trip wasn't. It allowed an impressionable boy to see that worship could be in the darkness of the woods and all alone with God. Being told this story as a young man, I have reflected many times how our walk of faith speaks to others after we die. We don't have to have a church service to find encouragement or to witness faith. Riley kneeling in the woods is still being heard today. If a tree falls in a forest and no one is around to hear it, does it make a sound? Is a philosophical question about observation and perception. The reality of a Christian praying in the forest does make a sound, and it is heard. Sometimes its echo is heard for generations. Elsewhere, over the next 2 decades, many large dams were built across America. Boulder Dam was a project of FDR's New Deal, taking 5 years to complete on March 1, 1935. It was later renamed Hoover Dam in honor of President Hoover. Thousands of workers risked their lives to construct the mammoth concrete structure. Designed for flood control and hydroelectric power, it also gave a road access across the canyon. These kinds of projects attracted some who moved from the Ozark Hills to find jobs. Many men were never hired on these federal projects, but they did not return to their homeland. Riley Harness was a farmer, and he had his family to oversee as well as his extended family. His grandmother, father, and sisters all knew he would help care for them. So he would not chase after a high-paying job elsewhere, but would trust God for their needs. When the spring crops were planted on the Creek Farm in 1935, Riley decided to go again out to Oklahoma to work. Rain was beginning to return, and the dust became mud, but the hot temperatures evaporated the moisture fast. Farm families planted and hoped for a harvest. Many received assistance loans to buy seed and cover some planting costs. Riley once again depended on someone to haul his family west, as he had no vehicle. Imagine how hot it was riding in the back of a work truck for a distance over 400 miles. A trip to western Oklahoma would take 2 overnight stops alongside the road where they would sleep in the exhausting heat. On one occasion, their truck pulled over and parked for the night nearby train tracks. As all tried to rest, the rumbling of a train only grew louder and louder. Young Clifford Harness thought they were going to get run over by the approaching train. He jumped out of the truck and ran for safety, telling the others they would all be killed. The Harness boys were not used to trains on Bear Creek, but it was another change they would have to become accustomed to. They would sometimes get the heebie-jeebies as they experienced a new world. The scorching heat would have been some of the most intense during the Dust Bowl years in 1935, but there were some crops in western Oklahoma that needed harvesting. One of those crops was broom corn, a tall sorghum-type plant that produces long strands of stiff, slender stems that make great broom heads. This is the crop called Kaffir corn that Melinda Harness wrote about, which was harvested with the help of the men. In the midst of an epic decade of dust storms, every house cleaner needed a good straw broom. The cane heads had to be hand-cut with a knife in the field, as no mechanical method had been successfully developed. In nearby Lindsay, Oklahoma, they claimed to be the broom corn capital of America. But in time, the broom business was swept away to Mexico. Earl Harness turned 16 years old on October 3, 1935. He said that the worst job he ever had was working in the broom corn harvest. He described a dust that descended from the Kaffir corn tops above his head. As he worked to cut the canes, the pollen dust would get down into his shirt collar, around his neck, and in the soft folds of his arms. The dust caused a burning and itching sensation combined with the extreme heat, which made him shiver years later to think about. He said in later years that it reminded him of fiberglass insulation getting on him. Earl had not fully completed his 8th grade education at Welcome Home, so he enrolled in school in Washita County, Oklahoma. He stayed with Robert and Velma Bond, Doyle Bond's parents, to finish up school in Cordell, Oklahoma. Riley and family had moved north to work, and he enrolled Clifford, Troy, and Perry at Cedardale School, where Native American Indians attended school. Clifford Harness had only completed 5th grade on Bear Creek and was then introduced to a level of math he had never seen before. His teacher attempted to teach him about fractions. Cliff was not understanding how to work his fractions, and in frustration, the teacher asked, "Clifford, do you even know what a fraction looks like?" Clifford busted out, "A dadgum mule!" The teacher said, "I'll see you after class." After school was dismissed, Clee, he shortened his name, stayed, and when the teacher attempted to give him a whipping, he moved around the teacher's desk and refused to take his licks. Clee said to the teacher, "You're not going to whip me?" Because he was as tall as the teacher, it was decided that a strict talking would suffice. Clee never went beyond the 5th grade, but not understanding fractions never kept him from a successful business career. He became a shrewd trader in time, and if you weren't careful, you'd come out with only a fraction of what you expected. I guess Clee did learn his fractions after all. Giles Turney sent handkerchiefs from Welcome Home to his grandkids in Oklahoma for them to have for school. He had their first initial embroidered on the corner so they could tell them apart. One day at school, Perry lost his on the playgrounds and reported it to the teacher. He was asked to stand up during class and describe it. He said aloud that it was white and had P on the corner of it. The class busted out in laughter at his description, as if he said it had P on its corner. Little Perry's face turned red with embarrassment from their teasing laughter. In the time I spent visiting Uncle Perry for the last 3 years of his life, I sometimes live vicariously his stories of growing up as the fourth child of older brothers. I, too, was the fourth boy, and like him, had a love and respect for my siblings, but sometimes felt like I was the brunt of their teasing. Back then it was called joking, and today it's sometimes called bullying. Using sarcasm or teasing is always risky, as intentions or perception is an unknown. Having fun with someone can lead to getting feelings hurt. Being sensitive toward others has been a slow process for me to learn. I hope it's something I keep improving on. Reflection. Riley and Melinda were raising their children the way early pioneers had. Hard manual labor was a way of life, but they all got a better education than their ancestors did. The combination of work ethic, innovation, and improvising is what made America great in times of hardship and war. Trials and testing in life can make us better and not bitter when we accept them from God as a way of making good people. May the God of all grace, who called us to his eternal glory by Christ Jesus, after you have suffered a while, perfect, establish, strengthen, and settle you. 1 Peter 5:10